So when we have our website in SharePoint, how do we make new web pages in SharePoint? Well, like many things, there are multiple ways to do it. We can create new pages using the application SharePoint Designer, but you can also make new pages in any given site just using the web browser. You take a classic SharePoint team site. If I'm in the browser and I use the Site Actions menu, I've got an option here to say that I want to create a new page. Now, selecting this option, notice that it will tell me that this page will be created in the Site Pages library. Now, the Site Pages library is the default location for new pages in most SharePoint 2010 collaboration sites. I'm actually going to cancel out of this for a moment because I'll see that in my site here, I do have a link over here to the Site Pages library in the quick launch bar. And I'll see there's actually two pages in there. The home page, which literally takes me to the home page. This page is being stored in the Site Pages library. I can even see that up here in the URL. So going back into that library, I can see that I've got another page called How to Use This Library, which actually has some useful information about working with these. These are what are called wiki pages. And in fact, the Site Pages library is what's called a wiki page library. It's a new kind of library in SharePoint 2010. Don't get too worried about the name. You don't have to be making your own Wikipedia here. This library is just a SharePoint library. It's a container. It's a location for new web pages to go so they don't just end up all over the place. Now, if I'm in this Site Pages library here, I could also use the ribbon to create a new document. That's just going to make me a new wiki page. It's the same thing as doing it from the Site Actions menu. So I create a new page, I give it a name, whatever I want. You can use spaces if you want to. Click Create, and when I make one, I instantly get dropped into this inline editing view. Just really a big container of content, the things I can change are within this blue box here. Now, we'll talk much more about the editing options available to us here in just a moment, but we do have a full web-based editing experience. I can use the ribbon to do some basic formatting of the content that I have here. And any change that I make to this page, I can instantly save by just hitting the Save and Close button. And this is now considered the current version of this page. It's available to anyone who can see this site. And this page I've made is what's called a wiki page. And wiki pages are the default option when we create a new web page using this new page section of the Site Actions menu. However, if I was to go into the Site Actions menu and instead choose more options, and I can see here it says create other types of pages, I can select that. I could look through this big long list over here, but it's easier if I just filter down by page, and I see I have two choices. Aside from a normal page, and that is a wiki page, I'll also see this, a web part page. Now, this is a bit of a bad name here. What they're calling a web part page is really the older SharePoint 2007 style page. It's a little more formalized, a little less flexible than a wiki page. When I create a web part page, I select this option and click Create. And the first thing it's going to make me do before the page even is created is choose a formal layout for this page. Does it have a header and a footer, 4 columns and a top row? Does it just have a left column and a body and a header? Is it a full page vertical? We give it a name. I'll call it example WPP for example web part page. It is an asset in SharePoint, so we have to choose where it's going to be stored. SharePoint doesn't really care. I can put it anywhere I want. In fact, I'll just leave this right now as the default Site Assets document library and click Create. Now, typically when you make a web part page, you're going to lose the quick launch bar on the left-hand side. Now, you wouldn't lose it when you're making a wiki page. That may or may not be what you want. Now, these web part pages can come in handy when making very content-heavy pages. Say here, I just wanted lots of tabular-driven data coming from a database in a big spreadsheet kind of appearance. And you'll notice that I don't have this instant ability to just start typing and to have the bold and left align and right align. The only option I really have here is to add a web part. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this page from the ribbon. Notice that when I delete it, it doesn't really disappear forever. It's sending this page to the site recycle bin. I'm going to click OK. Back to the home page of my site, I'm going to go ahead and make a wiki page. Because although those older style web part pages can be useful for informal, quick, easy page creation, wiki pages are the way to go. And despite the name, if you want to use SharePoint web parts, you don't have to make a web part page. We can still put web parts on wiki pages too. Notice that when editing this wiki page, I've got an insert section of the ribbon, which allows me to insert web parts just fine. Again, we'll explore this in just a moment. So in a typical collaboration site, like a team site, in SharePoint 2010, you can make wiki pages and you can make web part pages. And the default page created would be a wiki page. And it's a very easy page to create and to edit in the browser. But there is a third kind of page that can be created when you're using a site with the publishing feature enabled. I'm looking here at a publishing portal as it exists just after creation. And the process to make a page in this site looks pretty similar. I'm going to go to my Site Actions menu and create a new page. But there's a little more depth to it. Now, instead of being created in the Site Pages library, it's telling me this page will be created in the Pages library. Well, that itself doesn't seem like a big deal, and it's really not. But this is a clue to me that this will not be a wiki page. It's what's called a publishing page. Now, a first look here is a little similar, which will be good for anyone who's working with SharePoint, just creating content, and doesn't really care about what kind of page that they're dealing with. But there's quite a lot of difference under the hood between wiki pages and publishing pages. And one thing I can immediately see is this yellow status bar here. It tells me that this page is checked out and editable, because publishing pages typically are more oriented to the idea of having draft and published versions. They can be a work in progress for days or even weeks or even months, as opposed to wiki pages, which when you make your change and save it, it's done, it's saved. Another difference is that I actually have more options available up here on the ribbon. Even if it doesn't look all that different, there really are some new things here, such as the Publish section. Because let's imagine I'm a content contributor, one of a dozen people working on a really large public website. Well, I may be able to create content, but I may not be allowed to just publish this page and have it automatically go live on the website. I might have to submit it for approval, to start a workflow to make sure that somebody signs off on this, maybe the legal department, maybe the content style department. Now, all of these settings can be configured, they can be changed, and we'll go deeper into all of this as we go. But for now, realize that you don't just make empty HTML files in SharePoint and then start to fill them up. With collaboration sites, you typically make wiki pages, but you can also make web part pages. And when you have a site with publishing enabled, you will have the more formalized but very powerful publishing page.